when people say like, I don't want to hear the wooey, I don't want to hear the crap, mindset isn't about having a positive mentality. It's about who you are that allows for you to be able to have no limits. Let me say that again. It allows for you to have no limits. But right now, if you're not getting the results, and many of us have bought programs, think about that. If you haven't applied that program 100%, there's those blocks are in the way. There's those fears that are driving you.
Welcome to another episode of Millionaire Secrets. Excited to be here with another in our illustrious string of millionaire authorities spilling their secrets. Today we're joined by Justin Burns, who is, we will casually refer to as the code guy. He's got the membership code. He's got the expert code. He's got the millionaire code. He's got the online code. He's got all the codes. I think he might even have the nuclear code. So we're going to pick his brain. Justin, I'm glad you're here, man.
Thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate it.
For sure. Yeah. Well, welcome to Millionaire Secrets. And I will tell you, I'm excited about this conversation because, I love it when I can be selfish and serve at the same time. First and foremost with the Millionaire Secrets show, I desire to serve my audience. Entre-nation is generally how I refer to my audience. You're the code guy. I'm the entre guy. I got Entre Institute, Entre-nation. But what Entre-nation I know that they love is hearing a combination of tactics and also inspiration about like what's possible and how to make it possible, right? How do guys like us, defy our parents' guidance when they say, when are you going to get a real job? And we're just like, never. And it's going to be awesome. And I'm going to show you, right? So they want to know how we do that. But sometimes I get to interview people who also have a lot of codes that I secretly want to, or not so secretly, I guess, once we start talking, that I want to know too. And for you, it's like you broke into the speaking circuit and had to go through some challenges in that arena and break out there. You're an expert on membership businesses, which is like everybody wants that monthly mailbox money, right? You have a lot of hacks and stuff that I'm very eager to hear about. So I'm gonna pick your brain with totally selfish motives, if that's okay with you.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. Let's rock and roll.
Okay, so we're gonna get into that stuff. But I would like to go back to and actually I was doing a live earlier. And I don't script anything. I just talk. And sometimes I say a lot of babble. And sometimes I say things that I'm like, ooh, I like that. I need to remember that. And one of the things I said today that I was like, I need to come back to that is there was a week of my life where the way I put it on my live was I stopped sucking at life in like 1 week. It's like November. It was actually the 4th week of November, 2008. It was Thanksgiving week. So it's pretty easy to remember. I stopped sucking at life that week. I'm curious if you have a week in your life that maybe you've never thought about it this way. Is there a week when you stopped sucking at life, when the Justin Burns that we know and love now today was born in that week? Does that exist?
I would say, here's the thing. I remember, I guess, when I sucked less, right?
Okay, yeah. And I'm not trying to be hard on you before saying that guy sucked. I'm just saying some of us have like a clear inflection point,
Yeah. No, I will admit, man, I sucked.
Okay.
I sucked mostly, throughout life. And I always like to refer to this, right? Like I was the kid in school that wasn't good at sports. I was the kid in school that just sucked at math. I didn't, how like back in the day, you're good at oh, I'm good at gym. I sucked at that too. So so I sucked at all of that. But I always like to say we all have like this inflection point, right? Like we all have this point that if you keep, clawing, I like to say clawing, right? Because you have to claw your way through life. That doesn't mean struggle. That means clawing. It means it's a fight. It means like you're fighting for like who you are as a person, the real you past the bullshit that life has told you, right?
Yeah.
I remember mine because I was just not good at a lot of stuff. And so I remember I was filling out so many job applications, dude, because I always say this, like people, my mom would say, "Are you going to college?" I was like, "Mom, like I'm not even smart enough to go to college." Like that was literally my thing. So I skipped college, right? And I remember I was going from job to job to job. Probably had like 14 jobs. My friend used to make fun of me, and they used to make these bets. They used to say, "Let's see when Justin's gonna get fired from his next fucking job," right?
Okay.
So like I wouldn't hold on to many jobs, and I remember I never thought about getting into sales. Actually, people make this kind of statement. We all have made it. I suck at sales, right? You probably
Oh
said that
yeah,
to
yeah.
yourself before, right? Before you became who you are today. And I used to say that to myself until I met this guy, and he's like, "What is your skill set?" He was asking me this in a job interview, and I was like, let me think about it. I don't know. I think I suck at everything. And he's like, "Well, why did you apply for this job?" I was like, the thing about me though is I figure shit out, right? I figure it out. And he loved that answer. I don't know why I gave him that answer, but he was like, "I love that. Most people don't figure shit out. They just, they whine about it." So he's like, "Let's try you in the sales department." So he tried me in the sales department. And it was like this light bulb moment went off where I realized I was really good at connecting to other people. I didn't realize I had that because I was I'm still an introvert, but
Right.
like I didn't realize how good it was, and my sales start skyrocketing. And he brings me into his office. He's like, "I want to talk to you for a second." He's like, "I think I found your thing." And I was like, "What is that?" He's like, "You have the gab." And I was like, "What the hell is the gab?" I heard of the gift of gab. He's
Right.
like, "No, you have the gab now, but you haven't discovered that it's a gift yet."
Hmm.
And I was like,
Oh, nice.
that
Yeah.
was yeah. He was like, "But you just have the gab." He said, "If you develop it though, you're gonna have the gift of gab." So he starts mentoring me and teaching me why most people are really lazy, and at the company that we were at. And in about a couple months, I remember I became the number one salesman in the company.
Hmm.
And I was in my early 20s. And it was at that moment that I realized that I love to talk, and that's kind of evolved into, speaking and, being able to do webinars and stuff like that. So it was amazing.
So the catalyst for, and it doesn't always have to be a week. It could be a month or 3 months, whatever. The catalyst for your sucking less catharsis was this guy telling you something. Hey, you got a thing, right? This guy almost giving you permission to look at yourself a different way. It sounds like.
He did. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't PG-13.
Right.
So like it was like, in a sense it was tough love. It was like, dude, what the fuck is when are you gonna when are you gonna wake the fuck up and smell the coffee?
Yeah.
When are you going to get? And he said this, he said that nobody is coming to save you.
Mm,
And he's like, when are you going to get that through your head? And I'll never forget. I don't know why, but you know how, like teenagers, right? Like your mother is telling you 50 million things. People are telling you you need to do this with your life. But in that moment, especially being in my early 20s, I wanted something different. And I heeded to what he said. And it changed my life at that point because I took sales more serious. In my early 20s, a lot of people don't do this, but I didn't read any books coming out of high school, right? Up until that point. And he said, "I want you to go to the library and start reading sales books. You're going to be differentiated from 90% of people." So I went and I got a book by Jesus is losing my, it's Jim Rohn, right?
oh yeah, yeah.
I had, I had got a book by Jim Rohn, and I read it, and I had a little bit of a learning disability. So it was really tough to read that fucking book,
Yeah.
to be honest. But I just was hungry, man. I was like, I want to do this. So I dissected that book. We got into it. And I just started applying that stuff, man. And I was like 21, 22. And I felt like I found my life's mission at that point.
Man, you really sucked. You were bad at everything, and you had a learning disability. I don't know.
I suck, dude.
Yeah, man.
I
Gee. And you know, no, I'm kidding, but like, I love that story because, you know, it was there all along and you didn't see it. And here's the thing. I know, I mean, like I mentioned, I did a live earlier today, right? And I see the comments, I see the interaction from people. I stream, I usually multi-stream on a Facebook group, a Facebook page, an Instagram live, and a YouTube channel. YouTube, I get the comments later, but at least in the moment, I have 3 platforms giving me real-time feedback, right? So I know what people are thinking, right? I don't have to guess what the world thinks about itself at this point. People have really massive insecurities, and they see themselves through a really limiting and negative filter. And the reason I do what I do is to try to do what that guy did for you, which is really just give people permission to look at themselves a different way. And what you said to me was that really caught my ear was that, you know, as a teenager, because I got 2 teenage boys too, so that caught my ear for sure. Like, people are always telling you stuff, like your mom's telling you all this stuff, and I'm hearing myself in that because like I'm always telling my boys stuff, right? And I'm like, they probably roll their eyes like, oh, here goes dad. But
of course,
what you're
not listening to anything at that age.
and it's fine. It is what it is. And I try to talk less and demonstrate more anyway. But the thing you basically said in so many words was when the student was ready, the teacher, appeared, that guy. That for some reason up to that point you hadn't been ready, but at that moment you were ready. And then he said the thing that really landed with you and changed your life.
Yeah. I think also we all have like this, I call it the down point, right? It's the down point. It is the most suckiest place in your life. We all have been there, and some of us are going through it now, right? You know, like, and we go through it in cycles of life. And I think at that point, you know, I was bullied when I was a kid. I had my best friend died, of a heart attack really young, at a young age. Just so many different events that happened in my life, right? And so most of life, I really did suck. I mean, that was just most of life. And again, I wasn't the popular kid. I wasn't any of that. And I think I'll tell you the short thing that happened, because I think most people, they don't interpret negative events as something that could be the catalyst for them, right? They interpret it as this sucks, right? And they keep saying something sucks until they become that sucky thing that they don't really want or they want to avoid.
Yeah.
But then the difference is, and I remember this, I don't know how the hell I got this job because I was just applying for everything. But I remember right before I found that, I was a loan officer. Now, how the hell they gave me a loan officer job, I have no freaking idea. But I became a loan officer, and my boss hated me. He hated me. He hated me with a passion, probably because I really did suck at sales at that point. And also, I was a really good, compassionate, one of those goody guys.
So you didn't want to mark up the loan enough points, right?
There you go. That's exactly what happened, right?
Yeah,
you know where I'm going. So here's what happened. I was like the goody guy. I didn't want to mark, because at that, that was 2007 when you could fucking mark up loans. You could do whatever you wanted and charge whatever and make a bunch of money off of that. And I remember this lady was on the phone, and that's when they would give anybody a loan, like anybody in the world.
So stated income, no doc, right?
No docs.
Yeah.
They didn't give a shit. They didn't care.
Just so you know, I was with Countrywide during my tribulations. I did like 6 months as a loan officer with Countrywide in like 2005.
Oh, nice.
So I was right there with you, man.
Yeah, this was like a loan place. I don't even know. But anyway, fast forward, I remember sitting at my desk, and this older lady calls. She's like, I don't have any much income. They got me on 2 loans or something like that. She's paying like $1,700 for like this little bitty trailer house or something, like home or something like that. And I was like, well, you know what? I don't think you should go with our loans because our loans would basically bump you up $400 a month. It would consolidate it, but it'd be terrible. Apparently my boss was listening and he didn't like that I gave her some really great advice. So he fires me. He literally humiliates me in front of everyone. Like, you suck. You don't need to work in sales ever again. I've never met a more horrible salesperson than you. And I walked out the door, but here's the thing. I walked out the door with this level of pride that I did the right freaking thing. And that's what happened. And because of that, I felt like I was ready at that point. I didn't beat myself up. I didn't say, Justin, you suck. That was the first time in my life, Jeff, the first time in my life where I owned my fucking decision. I owned it. It didn't matter the consequences. I got fired. But instead of beating myself up, I was like, I owned that I made a decision and I was confident in my decision.
Nice.
Right? So then when this teacher appeared who said, dude, you suck at sales right now, but there's something there. Let me show you what it is. And he's like, I'm going to be tough on you. And dude, he ripped me to shreds for like 90 days. Like 90 days. But here's what happened. I was the first person in my family to make six figures at that job. Like, my mom never made over 30 grand in a year. Right. And so it was life transformational.
That's such a cool story. And here's the thing, that story, that's why you are who you are today. It's not because you learned how to close a deal. It's because you can make money closing deals. You can't make a lot of money and build a lot of momentum and build a great reputation and build a long-term career and build a great life for yourself just by closing deals. You build that by serving people. Right?
Yeah.
And that's what that moment sounds like, is like when you chose to serve rather than sell. And in the long run, they end up being the same thing.
They do, man. And they pay dividends. And, and that was the thing, man. When I was in that position, I remember everybody, it was so funny. I was like 22. And I remember, and this could even segue, this would be a good segue too, into my first kind of eyeball moment of entrepreneurship too, right? And I remember all I used to do was literally just care about people. I swear, I know that sounds really, cheesy, but you'll be surprised at how many salespeople try all these tactics. But if I just literally, people would come, and I sold cell phones at the time. And I remember people would just come and they would leave with 7 phones. It was absolutely crazy. And all I did was ask them about their day, how their kids are, or give them some advice about, not being stressed out, taking vacations, like just caring about them. Yeah. And it was crazy how it was crazy. So anyway, this guy comes in, and I always say, man, life, I don't care who you are. Life gives us opportunities. Sometimes we just don't pay attention to them. They're little specks. They're little specks right there. They're little specks that lead to the next dot in the puzzle. Like, that's what they do, right? They're not anything like somebody's going to drop $1 million or give you the job. Like, sometimes they're just little bitty things that if you latch onto it, you'll find your destiny, right? And so that was me. And this guy came in and he's like, I got this first check. So it was great. I made 10 grand in a month, Jeff. I was like excited. Right. I made 10 grand a month. I was 22, no college education. Freaking awesome. Sales is amazing. Made 10 grand in a month. My check was like $4 grand. I was like, what the hell is going on? Like, they took 50% from me, right? It was like crazy. And I remember I was talking to this business guy who always came into the cell phone shop I worked at. And he always like recommended, he's like, we would always talk. And he would always say, you need to start a business. And I was like, no. I was like, dude, that's not me. Nobody's an entrepreneur in my family. And then he's like, what do you look so sad for? I was like, dude, I just got my check and they ripped my heart out. Like they ripped it out. I thought I was gonna at least take home like 8. They could take at least 20%. They took 50. Jesus Christ, man. Government. So he's like, dude, even if you don't want to be a business owner, just incorporate. You'll save so much in taxes. Jeff, I'm 22 years. I don't even know what this means, but I'm always been the type where I'll try something. If I feel like somebody's genuine, I'll try it just to see. So I was like, all right, I go home, don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm trying to, put together all this like corporation stuff. I found this lady. She's like, I'll do it for $400. At the time, that was a lot of money to me, even though I made 10 grand. It was a lot of money to me for something I wasn't interested in doing. I incorporated, and at the end of the year, my tax accountant did my taxes, and it was like I got back like freaking 30 grand.
Yeah.
It was like 25 grand. And all I was doing was just like literally just swiping gas and doing this sort of stuff. It told her to do it. I was like, oh my God, entrepreneurship is cool.
I hope everybody really, really heard what you just said. Because I get a lot of, how people say I suck at sales, like you said. I'm sure you get this too. A lot of people say, well, I'm just not an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I like to play it safe. Bro, what's safer than getting 30 grand back at the end of the year?
It's not safer than that.
Yeah. I mean, saving money on your taxes is playing it pretty darn safe, right?
Yeah.
Controlling your income, I'll tell you, we could go down the rabbit hole of taxes and leverage and financial benefits to business ownership. But when I hear people talk about the safety of, that paying their taxes as they go because they don't, quote, trust themselves to get all their money and actually pay quarterly estimated taxes or set aside money for taxes at the end of the, it's like, oh, I don't trust myself. My job makes it easy. Listen, anytime there's a managed service that makes something easy, you're always paying a premium for that service.
That's facts.
Right? Like I used to have when I lived in New York City, I live in New York City. It should just be a given that I made a lot of money, because if you don't make a lot of money, you physically can't live in New York City. Right? But the way the economy is structured in New York City, like in Manhattan, there's like layers to that economy. And there's a whole managed services layer that's like people that come and pick up your laundry and they bring it back to you folded in baskets, and people that come and drop off your groceries, and people that bring your mail from the mailbox up and slide it under the door of your apartment in these buildings, and the doorman that does your security. And every single one of those things, man, you're getting dinged every month, right? And you're talking about having a managed service that does you the favor of taking your taxes out and parking it for you. You don't think there's a built-in premium for that, both at the government level and at the employer level? Trust me, you always want to get your money and be the one responsible for what you do with it. Always. Every time, law of the farm, like unshakable, unbreakable truth right there, right? So like you said, if for no other reason than that, incorporate. You can incorporate. I mean, if you're in sales, if you earn commissions, incorporate, man. I used to run an agency upstairs. I had all my upsell guys, like 15 guys. They were commission only. I told them all the same thing, man. Get a business. Have me paying your business. Anyway, like I said, that's a rabbit hole we could go down, but I'm glad you said it. I want my audience to hear it.
Yeah, it was the best thing I did. And I think, here's the thing, right? Like for me, that advice literally cut a light bulb moment on. And that was the thought process that happened where I started down the rabbit hole, because I was like, that was the question I asked myself. I was like, if the government is giving me money back as an entrepreneur, they gave me most of my money back because of write-offs and stuff. Imagine what I can make and not cap my income. Like if I don't know, man, my brain has always been like that. Like I've always been a guy who always have thought in the clouds at that time. Now I know how to control it, but I used to always be in the cloud. People always do this to me sometimes. Like, what are you doing? I'm like in a whole nother realm thinking about like, oh man, I wonder what life would be like if it was like this, right? And I grew up in Chicago, and where I'm from, like where I grew up, like we weren't taught that, right? Like that, and a lot of people are not taught that. A lot of people are not taught that, and even no matter where you grew up at, like most people are not taught that. They're not taught the essentials of life. And so for me, this guy, I've always latched on to mentors. And so this guy, I started getting more interested. So he's like, well, let me come to my house. And so I came to his house, and he had like this session, and this guy had this big mansion. That's not why I became an entrepreneur, because of that. But I saw how he was just telling me how he was broke, sleeping on his couch, and how he built this company. And it took him 10 years. And I'll never forget this advice. And this was solidified in my brain again. I started to listen. I actually started to listen because I'm like, he said, Justin, let me tell you something. Overnight success leaves you faster than they came in. But he said, give me the guy who will build a business and commit to a business for 10 years, developing skill sets. And I didn't even know what the heck a skill set was. I didn't even know I thought skill set meant, you working at a job, or I thought of like you getting good at this. I didn't realize like, oh, I can actually learn real estate. Like seriously, this is how basic it was mentally, how I thought at that time. I didn't realize you can literally go and learn real estate. I thought that was for special people. I thought their dads was in real estate. That's what I thought originally. And then when he taught me that, I started reading and developing and reading and developing and buying courses and doing all this stuff, man. It changed my life.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to my 20s. I was a jazz piano player all through my 20s.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's what I did professionally.
You don't strike me as a jazz piano player.
I've changed a lot. Although I actually played piano on my live earlier for my audience. It was kind of a breakthrough.
Nice. I got to tune into that. You got to let me know.
I had somebody tell me, they're like, Jeff, you should play for your audience, man. People love to see that stuff, right? So I did. Anyway, it's my first foray into that. But yeah, I used to be real serious, man. I used to be a very different person, dude. I didn't used to shave as much. I didn't used to get up as early. I used to go to bed later than when I now get up. If that tells you anything. I get up at usually around 4 now. I used to consistently go to bed at like 5 after the jam session. But anyway, as a musician, especially as a jazz musician, right? Because we just we make shit up for a living. Like it's not all written down. They get like, here's the changes, here's the key, here's the tempo, count it off, and I'll just play, man, figure it out, make it up, right? So like I was used to that way of being, but all the kids I grew up with, they wore collared shirts to the office every day. They were doing whatever their thing was, and I was the guy that was like, I think I joined 2 MLMs in my 20s. One of them I joined, and then I was too embarrassed to actually tell anybody. And it's like, the whole point of MLM is you're supposed to recruit other people, right? So I literally
tell everybody.
Yeah, I joined it, and I never told a soul. So I was the worst at that. And then later I joined another one, and I was like on fire about that one. And that was my one time. I recruited 20 people, and out of those 20 people combined, they recruited one person. And that was the end of that. I had a team of 21 people that I personally signed up 20. And yeah, anyway. So that was over the whole MLM thing. But my point is, I was always pretty open-minded because jazz musicians tend to be that way, right? And actually, I don't even know if that's true because a lot of jazz musicians have kind of like a broke mindset, and they're not actually that open-minded. But the point is, all the people I was around or that I grew up with, they thought everything was a scam. And they thought, like you mentioned, buying real estate courses, they would have said, scam, right? So anyway, that's my experience. I'm more interested in talking about your experience though. So let me ask you this. You said you didn't grow up around entrepreneurialism, right? And you didn't grow up around a lot of money. Was that guy, how old were you said when you went to that guy who built the company?
I was probably about 23.
Okay. Was that the point where you feel like you started your scope of possibility in your mind expanded dramatically, and you started to potentially see yourself having a different life?
Yeah, it was it was kind of in that moment. And I kind of started planting the seeds of like opportunity, and I don't know why I thought this way. I couldn't tell you, like, but I kind of do actually. I always tell people, like, the real you is there, right? Like, not the bullshit you, not the doubting you, not the I'm not good enough, not the I can't do this, not the I can't make seven figures, not all of that crap, right? All that's crap, right? It's 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 the real you is there. And when you listen to it, and I'm not trying to sound too, like, out there, but
Oh,
when you listen to it, it talks. When you actually sit down and you stop making excuses, and you actually say to yourself, you know what? This is how the fuck I am right now. Like, right now I'm broke. Like, people say, oh, talk positive. Like, you have to be real with where you are right now before that can happen. Because then you'll be illusion that when life hits you, you don't know how to adjust and change. So for me, I was like, you know what? I'm broke. You know what? I'm not educated. You know what? I'm not that smart. You know what? I don't have any fucking goals. Like, I just suck. I was honest,
yeah.
right? I was just honest where I was. And I'll never forget this job I was making six figures at. I was pretty good run for about a year, and then they laid me off. They laid me off. And so I remember I met this guy. I forgot how the fuck we met, but we met at this
Why?
event.
Why? Do you know why they laid you off?
They were just like letting, you know how it is with companies. They just
Okay.
sometimes let people go, right? So they were
Right.
letting a bunch of people go, and they let me go. And my boss, here's what happened. A couple months later, my boss contacted me. He's like, he's at another company.
Yeah.
He's like, I want you to come back because you were a badass salesperson. So I want you to come back. So I remember I was sitting in this Starbucks again, another seed that happened, right? Another seed. I'm sitting in Starbucks, and I meet this curly hair dude, like surfer looking dude. And we're talking, you know, two different people, but just, we just hit it off. We were just talking and laughing. And I was like, man, I don't even know what I want to do. I'm thinking about real estate. And I started I don't know why I started telling this. I'm like, I'm thinking about something different. And he said this. He's like, you know what you should do? Maybe you should look into the internet. And I was like, what? People actually make money on, what do you mean? Like, selling drugs on the internet? What are you talking about? He's like, yeah, man, there's so many different things. He's like, I sell affiliate products and I make money from it. And I was like, I never heard what affiliate was. Like, what is affiliate? What?
Right.
Like, it just didn't even cross my. He's like, just look at it. Just look at it. Here's my number. Let's talk. So anyway, this guy started this. We became really good friends over like a month, and I was in the unemployment line, and he hits me up, and he's like, dude, I got this big opportunity in California, and we're gonna start this big social media company, and we're going to work with companies and helping them. This is like 2009, right? And this is like, nobody knows what the hell social media is, but
Right.
the companies are like going crazy over it, right? And he's like, yeah, we're gonna charge them like 5-10 grand a month. I'm like, people will pay that for, like, I don't even know what social media is. And he's like, yeah, you should come out there. I can't pay you right now, but maybe it could turn into something big. And I was like, all right, I'll think about it. So of course I went back to my family, told my mother, told my sister, and I'm thinking like they're gonna be excited. I'm thinking about doing this company thing with this dude. And they were just like, no, you need stability.
Right.
No, you need a paycheck. No, you need something. You don't want to be out here like that. And at that time, I was nervous. I was like, so then my boss called me. He's like, you can take this salary job. I'll give you a couple salary because I know how good you are. It was like a crossroad moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, listen, Tony Robbins says this. He's like, if you want to take the island, burn the boat, right?
Right.
If you want to take the island, burn the boat. And I don't know why, but I was 23 when this happened, right? Because I'm 33 now. I was 23 when this happened. And I said, I want to burn the fucking boat. Like, I want to burn the boat. I'm going to take a risk. and my mom and family thought I was absolutely crazy. But I went out to California, and literally it changed my life, because not only were they doing social media, they were actually doing this thing called webinars. And I remember on the third day, I have my suitcase. I'm in this room, and they don't know what I'm gonna do. The guy just likes me, so he's like, "Dude, he's a funny dude. We're just gonna find a position for him." So we're there, and I remember he has this microphone at a table and a computer, and he's like, "I'm going live with people," and I'm like, "What do you mean live? Are we going to an event?" Like,
Right.
he's like, "No, there's this thing called webinars that you do with people, and we sell a digital program." And I was like, "What the hell is that?" So anyway, they do this webinar, and at the time, you probably remember this, Jeff. It was like one shopping cart was a thing. There was no other shopping carts. It was just one shopping cart.
Yeah.
And he showed me the shopping cart after he did the webinar. And at that point, I was like, I am never going back to a job ever again in life once I master this webinar thing. So yeah, man, that was a breaking point for me, seeing those results.
So I got to ask, we don't have to get into it, but curly haired surfer dude at a coffee shop moves out to California. Was this guy's name David by chance?
Not David. No. This guy's name is Brad.
Okay. So it's just funny because, like, even the fact that I'm like, wait, I might know the guy that he's talking about, because actually there's another curly haired dude that used to hang out at coffee shops that had a similar story to what you just described. Like, this isn't a one-off thing, man. From like, and I started online in 2008, and I'm glad we're talking about how you got your start online, because there was this, I'd call it like an origination period in the first decade of the 21st century. There's guys that started in 2002. Shoot, I had a guy on the show, I think it was last week, who started in like 1996. I'm like, I don't even know what he started with back then, but this stuff was, but it really was like the first, eBay, yeah, exactly. Or maybe he was selling dial-up internet or something, selling modems, but external modems, right? But there was this period of time when this stuff started to happen a lot, but you had to be like a real fringe. Like, it was a guy like you who's like young and questioning and kind of on the, like you said, at a crossroads. Like I'm older than you, but I was like a musician who was in a ton of debt and going through a divorce. And like, so I was at my own crossroads. We were the kind of people that were drawn into this world because it had no mainstream infrastructure or normalcy. It wasn't like now where, like, if somebody says, "Oh, I work for a social media agency," you're like, "Oh, that sounds cool. I bet he makes 6 figures or something," right? It was this Wild West world back then.
It was a Wild West. Yeah.
Yeah. That attracted kind of like bubble people like us. Right. And it's just gotten better and better and bigger and bigger since then. And so I think it's those of us that right now are really, really doing well for the most part. And actually later today, I'm interviewing a guy who's only been doing it for a couple of years, and he made $20 million his first year in e-commerce. So this isn't a blanket statement at all. There's some people that are like new and they just blow up really fast. But in general, it's like anything. It takes time to really settle in and find your groove with something, right? And so I think there's a tendency now, and I'm saying this to my audience who, they know my story. Now they know part of your story. They know the story of a lot of guys that I have on the show. There's a tendency sometimes, I think, to think, "Oh, well, I missed the boat," right? Because they see a lot of success stories from people that have been, say, "Well, yeah, I went online 5 years ago. I went online 10 years ago," or even with real estate. It doesn't even have to be online. I started flipping houses 15 years ago, or I bought my first rental, in 9 years ago. And I think a lot of times people, because they're looking for an out, they go, "Oh, well, the successful people are the ones that started then, so therefore I shouldn't start now." And what I want to say to that person is, that doesn't mean you shouldn't start now. It means you should do what Justin did then, and what I did then, and what other people did then, which is start and give it time. Right? Because you aren't, in my bio notes, it says you are the go-to authority when it comes to selling online in the digital age. Now, I don't know who wrote that statement, and I don't know if you even believe that statement, but the point is, you've done a lot of cool stuff. You've made a lot of money. You have a lot of authority. You have a lot of clients. You got a lot of results, all this stuff. But it didn't start that way, did it?
Dude, hell no. It probably took me about 4 years to make any money.
Okay.
I mean, shout out to the dude who made shout out to the dude that made 20 million in his first year. Like that.
Yeah,
that
trust
was
me, I'm
not
excited to dig into that. He's like 23 too. He's like
nice.
dude.
And he probably, and this is not to discredit it. I mean, of course, that's an amazing feat. But all of that comes from foundation. And unfortunately, a lot of us have, crappy foundations, right? Majority of us have programming. If you're blessed to grow up with, and it doesn't mean he didn't work hard, he worked his ass off to get there, but again, everything starts with foundation. And so I think those, like, for 4 years, I now realize that now I was building a foundation. I had a terrible foundation, right? Years before that, toxic foundation, all that. And in the 4 years, even though I didn't make any money, I was broke. I went broke like 10 times. It was pretty terrible because I was trying to make this online marketing thing work. And I didn't realize it was mostly mindset. It was my beliefs about myself, right? And when I realized that, I mean, the statement is cool, go to authority. Everybody can say that. But shit, I honestly had to believe that in some instances. Like, I had to believe that I was a go-to authority. And authority, like, I had to believe that I was an authority before I actually did it, right?
Yeah.
It sounds cliche, but I say that in terms of, if you want to make money online, like, I believe that I'm an authority. Jeff, you are a freaking genius and an authority as well. Like, we're all authorities. We just have to own that. So for 4 years, it was challenging. But I was mostly battling with myself. It wasn't that the tactics weren't there. Like, imagine if I had a good foundation and I met a Jeff Lerner, right? And he said, here's what you do. It would have took me a year to do it. But I was wrestling with myself for 4 years because at a deep core level, I didn't believe that I could do it.
Can you, because obviously those of us that are kind of in the entrepreneurial education / influencer / authority space, whatever you want to call it. I mean, we're all like a broken record, man, talking about mindset, talking about belief systems, talking about habits, talking about all this qualitative, almost woo-woo stuff. And people are like, very often the response we get or the demand from the market is like, I don't want to talk about all that. Just tell me what to do. Like, tell me what program to join or what product to promote or what funnel builder to use and what page template. And, they just want, and I obviously I get that, but I think I'm always searching to try to connect the dots in a relatable way to, like, we're not just saying this stuff because we want to avoid the tactical how-to stuff. Like, I'm really good at tactical how-to stuff, and you are too. And frankly, we were both at WebinarCon, 2-3 months, like pre-COVID, 3 months ago or whatever it was. And that was like 4 days of insane high-level and nitty-gritty tactical stuff from, a room with $2 billion in webinar sales. And we were like, it was like a convention of biologists talking about cellular mitosis. Like, it was hardcore nerd stuff. We're not afraid of going full nerd, but we don't go full nerd with people in the mechanical, tactical how-to stuff, because that's not actually usually what people need to start unless they want to waste a bunch of time. Like you just said, if you'd had your mental house in order, you could have done in 6 months to a year what instead it took you 4 years, right? And so I feel like a broken record saying this. Like, so can you give an actual example of a moment you had or a thing that you tried that didn't work or didn't work as well as it could have worked if you had a better foundation, as you put it? Like, can you give an example? Because I think sometimes that we just say this stuff.
So here's something actually recently that I implemented. So years and years ago, one of the things that I started to do was let's take for this is a perfect example. Pay traffic, right? Like paying for ads like Facebook ads, Google ads, stuff like that.
Right.
So literally years and years ago, I took a course. This is a perfect example. I took a course on how to do Facebook ads. And I saw all these people making money from Facebook ads. Now, because my mindset stuff was just so fucked up foundationally, all my stuff came up and I started having all this stuff about, oh, I'm spending this amount of money. I didn't have the mindset of, dude, I'm willing to spend $5,000 in a day if possible to make $5,000 to make 10, 20 grand in a day. But because I didn't believe it, because mentally I was so fucked up mentally, as soon as I spent $100, and here's the thing, I did the strategies. I spent $100. The fear came up. All the stuff came up when that $100. When Facebook took the $100, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't make any money spending my first $100. And 2 years, I didn't go back into that wheelhouse. And working through my stuff, working through those fears, it's not bullshit. Working through my stuff, now we've spent, $1,000, $2,000 in a day on ads, right? And even now, like we are like massively into YouTube advertising right now, and it doesn't scare me anymore, right? So when people say like, I don't want to hear the wooey, I don't want to hear the crap, mindset isn't about having a positive mentality. It's about who you are that allows for you to be able to have no limits. Let me say that again. It allows for you to have no limits. But right now, if you're not getting the results, and many of us have bought programs, think about that. If you haven't applied that program 100%, those blocks are in the way. There's those fears that are driving you. So when you remove those fears, you could take a Jeff Lerner course. You could take a Justin Burns course that teaches you how to be successful and give you the tactics, teach you how to set up the ads, how to drive it, how to make recurring revenue, and then you're able to do it and be successful.
Yeah, I'm really glad first of all, thank you. That was a perfect example. And secondly, you made me want to look up my stats. And we have 3 different managers that run Facebook ads for us right now. One of them actually we don't have his reporting hooked up, but I'm running a report right now for the last 30 days in my business. One of our ad managers has spent $79,000 on Facebook ads. Another ad manager has spent $30,000. And the one that we don't have hooked up, I don't know how much he spent, but he spends twice as much as the one that spent $79,000. I know that. He's our biggest traffic. So I mean, yeah, we're probably $300,000 a month right now just on Facebook.
Nice.
And we're trying to scale. And I say that because frankly, you kind of opened the door. So I'm like, I'm not trying to sound like whatever. It's just, you're right, dude, because it's not like it's not scary still. I look at that number and I'm like, damn, like really? But I trust the process. And people go, oh, well, if I had the results, I'd trust the process. I don't actually think that's true. Trust doesn't require results. Trust requires a trusting nature within a certain category. Think about how many people sabotage relationships because that one girl broke their heart in high school.
Yeah.
And now every relationship they get in, it can only get to a certain point. And they find a way to break it off because they want to be the one, they don't want to get hurt, right? It's the same thing with money. So anyway, I'm glad you teed up that example. That's a perfect example. And then you also, I think you actually held up, you teed up a really nice mirror for everyone to look into with what you said. If somebody has ever bought a course, in other words, they had enough belief to buy the course, but they didn't have enough belief to do every single thing that the course taught, then there's an issue in their foundation.
It is.
Right?
Yeah. And it is, and And I think for me, that was a mirror that honestly, it took me, man, 8 years to realize. Like we had some level of success. Like there was, I remember, man, we did this would be some tactical stuff too, by the way. That's really, really cool. I remember when I had my first product launch, I was so afraid to put my stuff out there, and
Yeah.
I had got into software. Software is like my thing. You know, we have the platform Maestro. Like software is just my thing. I love software. And I remember I launched my first software product, and I teamed up with this guy. We launched it with affiliates, and we got a bunch of affiliates on, and they were promoting. And I remember nobody knew who the hell I was. They were just like, "This is cool dude. He's funny." Like I would go to all these events, connect with them, and they were like, "I was like, would you mail for me?" And they were like, "Yeah, I'll mail for you." It was just a relationship because
Right.
joint ventures is all about relationships. And I remember we did like 200K in 1 month, and I was floored
Yeah.
because I had so much failure before that. And then we did another. I was like, "Oh fuck it!" I went launch crazy. So we did another launch, and that one did 400K in 3 days, and that was when it was like, wow.
And what
Like
type of product were you promoting? You don't have to tell me the details, but what was the basic?
I don't have a problem. We had a software product at that time. I made a bet on it was a I don't know if you remember like Google AMP, Facebook Instant Articles. They were like blowing up, and I'm not gonna get into the details because it's too techie. It's like techie stuff, and
Right.
we'll just talk about it. But I created a software that combined all of those, Apple News, all of that, and we did a launch on it, and we sold like 8,000 units of this.
So
mini
it was
software.
like a content syndication tool or something.
Yeah, yeah,
Man,
mostly for like.
dude, Justin, this is bullcrap, dude. You suck. You're bad at math. You have a learning disability. What the hell are you doing making a content syndication software? Who do you think you are? Didn't they tell you that you weren't smart enough to do that stuff?
Yeah, man, and at that point, I really didn't give a shit. I think at that point, man, dude, I was when they said, with mindset, it's so funny. I realized that shit is actually normal, right? It's the people that don't find it normal that says the word, and I've actually unconsciously still say it, and I got to rip it out of my psyche because it's actually normal when you say.
Yeah.
Like this stuff is not wooey. It's not actually, we say unconsciously, right? We go, man, that's wooey. It's not wooey, dude. Like that's normal. Like that's normal to change your mindset. It's normal to say, bro, I want the big time shit. That stuff is normal, man. It's crazy how we criticize ourselves and don't really do that
Do
stuff.
you ever feel like like we're actually the lucky ones? Like I don't want to sound like some kind of like public service commercial or something, but like the misfits, the kids that were bullied, the people that get shoved in their lockers or fit inside a box, literal or metaphorical or whatnot, that in a way we're lucky. And I'll speak for myself. I don't want to speak for you, but I'll ask if you relate to this. That living like that and the mental contamination that comes with it, the fear and the doubt and the self-loathing and the, whatever, it becomes so intolerable because it's such a miserable way to live and to feel about yourself that at some point it's like it's so bad that you can't accept it as good or even normal. So you have to reject it at some point. Whereas the people that like kind of get by and never really get beat up too bad, they can actually convince themselves that that's like a tolerable way to live. But I mean, I feel like you and we didn't have that luxury. It's, you know what I mean? It's like, we actually found rock bottom. And so we were forced to bounce. Does that make sense? Do you feel that?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But dude, hell no. There's no fucking luck in what we do. Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
the luck is finding out early enough that there actually is no normal and that you can't, and frankly, like you said, no one is coming to save you. You find that out when enough other people let you down.
Yeah. And a lot of people will let you down.
I have my Facebook, a Facebook ad I'm running right now. And look, I don't know. I mean, I run Do you run Facebook ads where you like put yourself out there?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do
It's
you
not,
get
it's,
a lot? Do you get a
it's
lot of
scary.
haters, a lot of shit talkers?
Oh yeah, I mean, you gotta be able to deal with that shit. Yeah, we ran a offer a couple months ago, and dude, they were coming out of the woodworks on that fucking ad and talking shit. It's just, you just gotta have thick skin, man. Where just you laugh at it and you don't take it serious, because I mean, how miserable does somebody have to be to go on a paid ad and talk shit? But it's just it's what it is. So
Yeah, and I kind of think that's what I mean. It's like somebody commenting on our ads. I just happen to pull up an ad right now because this one, like for some reason, this one ad, like how every now and then you have like certain ads that convert really, really well. Like you're just like, oh, we want to up our spend on that ad. There's other ads that seem to convert really, really well into like hate. Like if there was what is it, like a HPI metric, like haters per impression or something. Like certain ads just have a really high HPI. This one ad for some reason has really high HPI, and I'm looking through it, and I mean they're just like this and that, and it's all just mean, dumb stuff. But like that's the extreme version. Like it's easy to look at those people and be like, oh, that's marginal, man. Those are the same people that are like, burning crosses in people's yards, or like those are dysfunctional people. But I actually think those are still human beings. That's just one way that fear and insecurity manifests in certain people's behavior. But there's still a thread of a truth in that behavior that's actually a thread of truth about all human beings. And the more I realize that, the more it's not like becoming a cynic or a misanthrope or something. It's more just like, it's like you said, if it is to be, it is up to me. Because what I'm seeing out loud in the comments is actually an undercurrent in 100 times more people than the people that are just saying it out loud. In fact, they're actually the ones brave enough to say it, because most people just think it. A lot of people just think it, right? And
for sure.
And it's like there's almost this group of people, and I'm speaking to my audience here, like there's a group of us who, for no real reason other than just because, and with no one else's permission, I would say never actually give anyone enough control over your life to need their permission. Right? Like at some point, it's about giving yourself permission. And there's a group of us that have, and we ain't ever going back. We're taking the island. And we actually have like pretty open arms. I mean, tell me, is there anyone that you wouldn't want to come join us?
No, I mean, man, listen, I think in terms of abundance, right? Like there is so much abundance in the world, man. And I think everybody has, as cliche as it sounds, I mean, I think everybody has a gift, man. And I think everybody can find their thing, right? They can find their thing. And yeah, man, we welcome you with open arms. Come on over to the good side of entrepreneurship.
Okay. So that said, just only because of time, I want to, kind of got to bring this to a close. I want to make sure, because I think from talking to you and from stalking you, like I did before our interview, and just from knowing you in the marketplace, right? Like anybody that's serious about wanting to come join us. And like you say, talking about abundance, I mean, there's so many different offers and so many different opportunities and so many different business models and so many different lead generation pathways and platforms. Like we're not possessive or greedy. Like there's plenty for all of us. We want you. We're like Texas, that you may not be from Texas, but Texas wants you anyway, right? That's a song. But we're like Texas. We want you. I'm not going to say we're like the Army, because I don't know. That's not our vibe. But so I think for people that want to make that leap, you're a great person for them to connect with. So how would they do that?
Yeah. So there's a couple different things. So we have, justinburns.net is my website where, I I share a lot of stuff. I just started this really cool kind of show that Jeff, I got to put you on now, brother, because now you have me on yours.
Great.
I talk a lot about this stuff, and so that's that. And then there's some training there that I do all around membership stuff. So that's probably the best. And then our main company is Maestro, right? That's a membership software, which is we rebranded it Maestro, Maestro.com. So yeah, man, those are probably the best two ways. And then hit me up like what Jeff did. If you want to stalk me a little bit, like Jeff did, uh, you could hit me up on Instagram as well, which is the Justin Burns as well. That's my Instagram. So.
Yeah, I actually want to take a minute, and because you mentioned just stalking people on Instagram. I mean, and obviously we use the term stalking like tongue in cheek, right? But the cool thing is you don't actually have to stalk most marketers because they're pretty cool. Just hit them up. Like, they're not going to file a restraining order as long as you're just like nice.
Yeah, you hit me up, and I was like, well, I had already, it's so funny when Jeff pinged me. I was like, I've heard who you are, right? So it was pretty cool. And we didn't even realize we were at the same event couple months, like a month before that. So it was actually pretty cool.
And actually, I'm glad you said that, because the other thing, I think sometimes people, like I said, they think about missing the boat. And I'm just talking about, really, really finding your path, and doing really, really well in this new economy, right? This digital economy. I think some people think they missed the boat. I don't think people and we realize it because we're in that world. It's still so small. Like maybe there's, in the entire digital marketing space, you've got like agencies and, there's a lot of companies that have employees, like agencies that have 200 employees, right? But in the subset of the digital marketing world, say, okay, people that actually own their own business, or they run their own offers, or they do their own launches, or they manage their own lists or whatever. I don't know, maybe there's like a couple 100,000 of us in that whole ecosystem. I mean, you go to like a ClickFunnels event, that's about as big as that world gets. And you got 5,000 people in the audience, right? And so maybe there's 250,000 of us in the world or something. Like there's like, I don't know, there's probably more people that have made millions of dollars owning a taxi cab company than there are people that have made millions of dollars as a digital marketer online. So like, if you have this idea that like, oh, it's gotten so big and it's too late, it won't even be crowded until there's like 10 or maybe even 100 times as many of us. You know what I mean? Like, we're still so small. And the fact that we're like you said, we randomly happened to be at the same event 3 months ago in a room that only had 120 people. It exemplifies how still small it is. So this is not a weak call to arms. I'm throwing this net out there saying, hey, we got room for 1 million more people. So step up if you want to be one. And like I said, I think following Justin could be a big step in that direction. You mentioned your site. I'm looking at your site right now. The Expert Code podcast is the name of that. You mentioned membership sites. I will strongly encourage people to look at Justin's offerings around the membership site. And I'm not like going to give an affiliate link or anything. I'm just saying, like, check it out. Because the thing I love about membership programs online is they force you to deal with a lot of limiting beliefs along with the tech and the mechanical learning. Because to say, I'm going to launch something of my own that's predicated on having people pay me every single month brings up a lot of stuff for a lot of people. They're like, well, who am I conversation, right? And I promise you'll be a better person if you push through that conversation.
Yeah, definitely. And even to add to that, like, that's why, even teaching some of our students about launching membership, like we have one lady who she had like probably like $50 in her bank account. Like I like stories like that, right? Like $50 in her bank account. And she just pushed through, and she had made a bunch of money in investing, and she lost it. And she started building herself back up, and she started teaching other women how to do it. And it was she had this fear every single time we would get on group calls. She would always say, I don't think people are gonna listen to that. And I kept saying, like, no, fuck that. They will. Like, you'd be surprised. And now she has like 2,000 members paying like $50 a month. I mean, like, stuff like that is like the coolest thing. I love hearing about like just. I mean,
that's $100,000 a month for anybody that's. I was gonna say like Justin bad at math, but that's like over the line. But anybody that's bad at math, that's $100,000 a month from a lady that had $50 in her bank account.
Yeah, and now she's starting like an institution. I mean, that's the thing too, right? Like Jeff, I know we're limited on time, but this is really, really cool.
Yeah, tell me, please.
That's the cool part, is that it's not just about the money, right? Like it like the money allows you to do so much cool stuff when you just face your shit and you do amazing things in the world. There's so many things that you could just do. Like for me, I've always been into technology. And when I had a digital publishing company, I still sell a lot of, some of my products, but like building cool stuff. Like there's even some stuff outside of even the membership program that I'm building in the tech space, because I'm like a complete like futuristic nerd, right? So, but I don't have to go out and get funding. Like I can,
right?
But my business funds that, right? Like the cool shit that I want to do, I can go get a bank loan and all that other stuff, but digital marketing has allowed for me to do some really cool stuff. So
that's awesome, man. Yeah. That means when you build something, you actually get to own it.
You own it.
You don't have to give 80% of it to the money guy.
Exactly.
That's awesome,
man. That was brutal, dude. They used to rip me off, man.
Oh, it's painful. Jesus. Yeah, man. I mean, my education company right now, I funded it myself. And as an example, talking about the mindset, I started the business by shooting social media content videos. I wasn't even talking about business. I was talking about like my kids and lessons I learned from being a musician, and it was just life stuff. And I started boosting the content, and I spent like, I forget what it was, either 20 or 25 grand over a period of like 6 months. So that's a lot of money, but it wasn't like $1 million or anything, but it was to boost content that didn't sell anything and that didn't even position me as an authority on anything. It was just to test the market to see if people liked me or hated me, or the worst would have been if they just ignored me altogether. And if you go to your parents, or you go to your guidance counselor, or you go to your teacher and you say, hey, should I spend 20 grand to promote videos of me talking about, something I learned from my 11-year-old last week? Nobody's going to tell you that makes any sense on God's green earth. But if you understand the process, and you trust the process, and you believe in your ability to leverage the process, then you'll do a crazy thing like that, right? And that's every people. If anybody that knows my company, I'm speaking to EntreNation right now. Literally, the origins of that were in another example of what Justin's talking about, which is that you work on yourself first, and then you'll do the things. Hey, man, I have loved having you on, dude. I appreciate it.
Dude, I appreciate you stalking me, bro.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, for those of you out there, thank you for, if you're watching us on YouTube, appreciate having you here. If you're on the podcast, on any of the platforms, we're on all the platforms. Appreciate you listening. Go check out Justin and his stuff. And I don't know, go do the thing, man. That's how I'm going to end. I'm going to say, go do the damn thing.
Go do the damn thing. That's a great segue out.
All right. Take care, man.